This boy approached a car to beg for change. Then he saw the woman inside and broke down in tears.
Before we continue with the rest of the video, we could use your help. Click that like button to help spread the word about watchJojo, and also be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos.
John Thou may look no different than any other child beggar in Nairobi, Kenya, but the boy has certainly proved himself to have a heart of gold. And when his actions towards Gladys Command came to light, they made headlines for all the right reasons. Thou's life itself has been tragic, however, since his mom passed away when he was very young. The boy was subsequently left in the care of his abusive father. Ultimately, though, Thou couldn't endure any more time with his dad, and so he ran away to the streets. And like the majority of homeless children in Kenya, Thou devoted much of his time to asking civilians for money in order to survive. Beggars in Nairobi tend to approach motorists when they're in their vehicles, and Thou was no different in that regard. Perhaps the biggest obstacle facing child beggars in Nairobi, though, is the assumption that they're criminals, rather than helpless kids who have been forced out of their family homes through no fault of their own. But perhaps the story of how Thou met a woman named Gladys Command may change that perception of homeless people in Kenya. And when Thou approached Command's car in late 2016, their meeting would prove to be a touching one. At first, though, the boy noticed something unusual about Command's appearance. She seemed to be hooked up to a huge machine complete with tubes. Thou then asked Command about the tubes, and she informed him they were connected to an oxygen tank that helped her to breathe. Her lungs had stopped functioning properly without this assistance, so she needed to carry the equipment with her at all times. And although Thou was homeless and begging for money on the streets, he was seemingly overcome with empathy for Command's plight. He was deeply moved, it appeared, by the fact that there are people such as Command who need the assistance of machines so they can breathe properly. Overwhelmed by this realization, Thou burst into tears. He then reached into his pocket and offered Command everything that he'd managed to collect that day, in spite of his own problems. Thou looked to believe that this woman needed the money more than he did. Thou also insisted that he wanted to stay with Command so that he could help her with housework. It seemed that the boy could sense just how much of a struggle Command's life had been. And the woman had had her fair share of problems. After suffering from a stomach condition, for instance, she'd been reliant upon oxygen tanks for more than half a decade. Command also had to endure 12 operations, one of which sadly led her to lose her sight. Tragically, her health issues had originally occurred as a result of assaults by an abusive husband. When a pedestrian spotted the emotional encounter between Thou and Command, however, they snapped a photograph of the pair. And after the onlooker posted the resulting image on social media, the shot began to attract a lot of attention. In fact, it ultimately went viral. Soon enough, people wanted to learn more about the two individuals in the photo and what had happened between them. It emerged that Command subsequently took Thou to a children's home before vowing that she'd return to him once her recovery was complete. Meanwhile, when Command had first met Thou, she'd been in the car with some friends as part of a fundraising campaign. Her loved ones had been doing their best to amass the $70,000 required to pay for a lung reconstruction operation. Furthermore, during the period when Command's husband had constantly assaulted her, she had reportedly suffered several miscarriages. The emotions shown by Thou after he approached her car had prompted Command to take the young boy under her wing, and the encounter would ultimately end up changing both their lives. For one, Mike Sonko, Nairobi's senator, saw Command in Thou's story and felt compelled to help. To that end, he used his official Facebook page to request that local citizens donate money to Command's cause. Sonko even included detailed instructions explaining how people could give funds. And as the tale spread further, enough money was donated to Command to finally afford to fly to India and undergo surgery on her lungs. In total, people in Nairobi and across the globe gave $80,000, which will hopefully allow Command to have a more comfortable life in the future. Across social media, there was plenty of sympathy and concern for Thou too. "What a big heart this precious boy has," wrote one commenter on Twitter in response to news of his and Command's encounter. Another described the images accompanying the Twitter post as beautiful. But that wasn't the end. Nisi Wambugo saw the story, after which she made the effort to track down the youngster and adopt him. Wambugo has since provided Thou with a loving home and the opportunity to receive a school education. As a result, then, Thou's choice to donate all his money to someone else in need paid dividends. Now he has a loving mother and a seemingly bright future, and he'll likely never need to beg for money on the streets of Nairobi ever again. Thou and Kaman's tale may well challenge people's existing perceptions of homeless people in Nairobi too. But if nothing else, the outcome from their meeting provides some good evidence for the notion that if we put compassion out into the world, we'll often receive it back in return.